We're Josh and Mandy Perry, and we've been married for 17 years now and have three wonderful children. Grayson, who is 14, Sarah Beth, who is 12, and Lillian, who is 7. And I am the worship pastor at Life Church, and Mandy is the children's director at Life Church. And we just love spending time with our family and running kids between practices and games and rehearsals and ballet and everything else.
So Grayson was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in January after living 14 years of extreme, wonderful, good health. We always talk about Grayson always won the Perfect Attendance Award, and I can't recall a time even he had an antibiotic. Just a super healthy boy, super active. He was in the middle of soccer and football in the fall, and then had transitioned to a basketball season in that diagnosis. And so it was a real shock of just dealing with sickness and hospitals and medicine. I mean, even just having to be mindful of taking medication and remembering that schedule. So Grayson's treatment plan was, we were really fortunate in that our pediatrician was able to diagnose him here and quickly onboard us down at Eggleston at Children's Hospital. We're really grateful for that. Incredible care there. As much as it breaks your heart, here in Rome, Grayson was by far a minority and a shock. But there, he is one of 100 patients that they deal with on a daily basis. So we were in the presence of experts who calmly and very much understood what we were dealing with and what Grayson would be going through and what the plan was ahead.
And fortunately, unfortunately, however you look at it, we hit it during the middle of a pandemic, and so life slowed down for everybody, but it slowed down even into more slow-mo for us. And that was the blessing and the curse in a lot of ways. You know, it forced us to slow life down. It forced us to just be more intentional with family time and to be more intentional with schedules. And that was the next 4 months of chemotherapy, going to Atlanta every other week and having long treatment days. And then the recovery days after that, and then the in-between time, being way more intentional, trying to make the most of the in-between time, knowing the treatment day was coming again. It forced intentionality, which in a lot of ways we're grateful for, but it was definitely painful. So.
I think typically if you would have asked me prior to January of 2020, I would have said I was a pretty private person. Definitely not taking to Facebook and sharing my stuff, if you will, but God made it really clear with this journey that I was to share. And for me personally, that was very healing. That was very helpful in the process. We chose to make a Caring Bridge page for Grayson, and so the opportunity, I specifically remember that first Saturday being away at a volleyball tournament with our oldest daughter, and between matches I would just get away and just write. And I remember telling Josh later that was so helpful for my heart, just to be able to process and put those thoughts and feelings to words. And so that was a huge thing. I really would encourage anyone as a mom going through the journey to not be afraid to let people help you. Again, that wouldn't be something I would normally say. I was pretty good at that, letting people help. But this is one of those circumstances where you just can't not do it any other way. And just really allowing people into our journey, into our pain, and letting them help as much as they could or were willing to in those circumstances.
And for me, I've always been a very optimistic person, and I always find the silver lining. And so twofold with that. One is when you're hit with the word cancer, it's very hard to stay optimistic, and it's very hard to keep your chin up, and it's very hard to find the silver lining, and it's very hard to continually seek joy. And so whatever it takes, that advice, find the joy, even if it's the small sliver of the day, even if it's the small sliver of laughter in the midst of a horrible treatment day, whatever it is, find the joy, cling to it. But then at the same time, don't be afraid of the pain, because that's something for me as well, that it is hard for me. I'm a very even keel person, and I don't have highs, I don't have lows, and this forced me to embrace lows, and it forced me to not just push them off. And so find the joy, but also embrace the lows, because it's okay to hurt, and it's okay to not be always flat. And so, yeah. Our support group was amazing, and we never could have done it without the group that we had around us. And the cool thing is it was very organic, and just friends and family, the community at school, our church, our staff around us, our coworkers, just stepped in and loved in the smallest of ways, that were huge to us. And so, from everything from our school community rallying and creating a T-shirt and selling a T-shirt and raising money just to bless us with, and to see, even now when we go to the school and we're at a ball game, and to see a Pray for Grace shirt, it's just so touching still. And to have friends that just out of the blue drop a card in a mailbox with a $100 gift card in it for no reason, or just a note saying they love us, and not even anything else, but just stepping in and just loving, and it's been amazing, and then even beyond that, we would talk about, as we would share Caring Bridge post or Facebook post about, you see comment after comment and like after like of thousands of people who we don't even know, and so our friends are sharing our story, and through that, even that is blessing us more than we could ever imagine.
Yeah. I think this process also, even just talking about it, it gets me choked up again, because the support was incredible. It was something that, even though we had walked through hard things before, nothing like this, as far as that support, that rallying around our family, loving us. And it wasn't just Grayson, it was my daughters too, and their ball teams, and our neighbors, and just the love that people had for us, and to pray for us, and just really carrying us through some hard times. I knew that we were on our way down to Atlanta, and you could just feel the prayers kind of carrying us down there. Yeah. And when I look back on that journey, I think about people just did really neat stuff, and I think a lot of times that comes from other people having walked it too and know. Like I think about one particular person that's really close to us bought us a Peach Pass, because she had carried her mom down to treatments, and she knew, even just that simple thing, what a help that was. So I think from this point forward, I will forever be changed in how I want to support people, how I want to love people through things, whether it's cancer or something different. But it really showed me just how well people can love others, and the support that really makes, and truly making a difference in someone's life.
And how huge the smallest of gestures can be.
Mm-hmm.
So. For us, we spent a lot of time just outdoors. We did a lot more hiking, a lot more biking, a lot more fishing. We love those things, but we did a lot more of it during the journey of cancer. And again, it goes back to just being intentional, and we just, for us, drawing into the family and just pulling all the ducklings in and just keeping everybody tight was huge for us. And so we just did a lot of that. and that was helpful to us physically, of course, but just the emotional health of being able to go and hike and being able to go and fish or being able to go and sit in a kayak or whatever, or on a paddle board. Those things were our peace a lot of times in this situation.
Yeah, and Josh and I found ourselves in interesting places too, because we were in the middle of a pandemic. Many of the treatments had to just be one parent and Grayson. And so one of the interesting things that we found was that kind of created different journeys for us as parents. So Josh is there and he's doing some really hard work with Grayson and getting through those treatments and the flushes and the process of all of that. And I know that was hard for him, but yet my journey was hard too in a different way. I usually took more of the role of being at home and really praying. I spent many hours on my knees in Grayson's room just praying. Sometimes that would be on the phone with a friend and we'd be together praying. Sometimes the girls would come in and we'd pray together. And so I definitely can't let this opportunity go by without saying the power of prayer for me. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, other people praying for us, and worship. Worship was a big thing too. There would be a couple songs that God would put on my heart, and I would sometimes just play those over and over and over again. And I think there's such power in that. It keeps our minds focused on the positive. It keeps our minds focused on the promises of God, and not going to the fear and the anxiety and the fret and the what ifs and just really kind of closing off to that stuff that can so easily take root in our hearts and in our minds, and choosing to focus on those things instead, and wanting to cover that, the treatment, the prayer, the travel, all of it in prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There were two distinct times for me when I recognized just everything shuts down, and the only thing that's important in that moment is Grayson, his health, and our family. And the first was at the initial diagnosis. I'll never forget sitting in the office and the pediatrician walking in and saying, "It's not good. It is what we believe to be lymphoma, and we're going to send you guys to Eggleston." And at that moment, as a father, it felt like everything just crashed down. And we had plans for that afternoon, and some things that were going to be going on, and all of that was worthless at that point, because at that moment there was nothing else, and the weight of that pressing down shut everything else down, shut everything else out. And then the other time was, I remember it was March 13th, the Friday, the Friday that basically everything shut down.
The whole world.
The whole world shut down, and but I remember having to be on a conference call. I was at Eggleston. Mandy and I both were there with Grayson, and it was, I think, the last visit that we were both able to go. And I had to step out into the hallway to be on a conference call for work to determine if we were going to have in-person church or not, and what that was going to be. And we were just waiting to go back to the doctor at the time. And I remember looking in, and Mandy and Grayson starting to stand up and realizing that it was time for us to go back. And I remember just, like, we weren't done with the phone call, but I was done with the phone call. And just hanging up, and at that point nothing else mattered again. And it was just again, it put a pause to everything. And it's in those moments, those words you hear when you see your loved one walk back into an office, when you see the doctor come in with a concerned look on their face, or in those moments everything does shut down. And but then on the positive of it, I'll never forget as well, the day that we found out Grayson was a rapid early responder. And again, same thing on the other side of it. It shut everything down, and all we could do was celebrate and rejoice that his body was taking to the medicine in the way that the doctors wanted it to, and that what needed to happen for his healing. And so.
just would tell Grayson how proud I am of him. No one ever we want to go through what he had to go through, but man, that young man did it with such strength and with such courage. And I never want to stop telling him how proud I was of him. To be 14, there's a lot that he is going through anyway. It's a hard time in life, of course. That transition, about to start high school. And so just to see how he did it with very little complaint, just really kind of the best of what you could handle in regards to his choices and his actions. And I always want to make sure when I explain that, I don't want to gloss it over. There were very, very hard days, and it was tough, but Grayson was just so brave in it all. He was so courageous and so strong, and just really a conqueror. And I want him to know how proud I am of him. I do believe as he journeyed on, there were some things that happened that maybe would have made him feel that he wasn't that. Treatment days were sometimes really, really tough, but even in that, he still was so brave, and I want him to know forever how proud I am of him. We can do this. That was kind of our message. If you've heard of Grayson's story, in that pediatrician's office when the diagnosis was given, as parents, Josh and I were speechless. Our hearts were breaking. We were at that point of just shock, and it was Grayson that turned and said to us, "We can do this." And as the journey progressed, there were days where we had to look at him and take his face and say, "We can do this." And so I just want to say to the cancer community, and to other folks going through hard things, take our phrase, and may it give you strength and encouragement to know that we can do this. And the we is important. Grayson didn't say, "I can do this." He didn't tell Josh, "Dad, you can do." I mean, it was a we.
It's always we.
And the we is so important because we do need each other. There were days where Grayson was really struggling, and he leaned on Josh's for strength. There were days I was really struggling, and I leaned on Grayson, and he was my rock, and he was my source of strength and a reminder of being courageous and facing this. There were days where Josh would have a hard time, and I would have to remind him. So it truly is a we can do this. So I think that would be the phrase I would say
Absolutely.
to the cancer community. We can do this.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just our family, like what Mandy's saying with the community. Like we had people we didn't know that were a part of the cancer community that were reaching out, encouraging us as well. And it really is a community. It really is a family now. And it's one of those communities or families that you don't want to be a part of, but once you're a part of it, you're grateful for it. And so just cling to that idea. Like Mandy said, we hope that you can take this and that you can run with it, and it can be ingrained in you too that we can do this.
Yes.